Alright, this is the second. America mobilizes World War II. This is now African Americans and women. What were they doing in this role? So first off, segregated units in World War II. This is just kind of an interesting thing here. African Americans served in segregated units, and largely they were in non-combat roles, with the exception being the Tuskegee Airmen. Asian American regiments, called Nisai, earned a high number of decorations, and we'll talk about those in a minute. Communication code of the Navajo was used, the Navajo Code Breakers. There's a great movie with Benedict Cumberbatch, who is Sherlock, called The Enigma Machine, and it's really good to go and look at that. Mexican Americans fought in non-segregated units. They actually fought together with the other ones. And these minority units usually had high casualties, but won lots of awards for bravery in action. So it's just kind of interesting with that and how that whole thing worked. Now, as I mentioned, I would talk about the Tuskegee Airmen. They were called the Red Tails. Benjamin O. Davis was associated with that. Tuskegee Airmen, their exploits were well known. In fact, it was always said they never left a man behind. Now, that doesn't mean they didn't have one shot down, but they did every effort to get that man back home to his family. And because of that, they are going to inspire many, many people in the 1940s and 1950s in pushing civil rights along, and we're going to see how that works, especially when we get to civil rights. Okay, they're instrumental though in helping the modern civil rights movement. Okay. Now, another man that has kind of maybe lost Hitler is Doris or Dory Miller. Now, Dory Miller, if you remember, segregated unit, non-combat role. He is at Pearl Harbor when Pearl Harbor happens. Okay, he's actually a cook, I believe it was. He wasn't initially recommended for any commendation. He later received the Navy Cross. He was a cook. He came out, grabbed a gun, and an anti-aircraft gun, and actually took down a couple of Japanese planes and helped to kind of solve these things. Now, sadly, he was killed in an invasion when they were invading the Gilbert Islands over in the Pacific. But Dory Miller is going to be an unsung kind of African-American hero in World War II. Now, through Dory Miller and others, African Americans in the country are going to actually enlist in the military because of what they call double V. Now, Winston Churchill popularized the V, or for victory, sign, and he did it a ton. So African Americans said, how about the double V? And they said it was victory at home and victory abroad. Victory, and then put another way, victory against fascism, victory against racism. They felt that if they proved themselves, they'd come back and they'd see segregation was morally wrong. However, it didn't happen that way. And Jackie Robinson is a good example of that. And we'll save that maybe when we get civil rights, okay? Now, for women, there was a couple of things. First off, there's the WAC and the WAC. Now, the WAC, Women's Army Auxiliary Corps, will later be shortened down to the Women's Army Corps. Oveta Kolphavi was a good example of that. Now, an auxiliary is a group that helps out a smaller group. In this case, these are the nurses, etc. Now, why the name change? Women actually wanted to feel that they were a part of this, okay? Then we have WAVES, okay, which was Women's Auxiliary Voluntary Emergency Service. They're basically going to be midshipmen. They're going to help out with Navy little things. So this was the Navy version of the WAC, and again doing kind of those roles. Now, our last group is really kind of maybe controversial, I don't know, but the women air service pilots are simply put WASPs. WASP never actually left the country. They did a lot of minor roles, well, not minor roles, but other roles that were left vacated by military men in the United States. In fact, there was a big discussion about one of them being buried at Arlington National Cemetery. Should she be allowed to be there, because she technically didn't go over there. And a lot of people are on both sides of the fence, and we'll look at that article in class. So that was the second video there about African Americans and women, what they did in World War II.